The coffee maker gurgled to life at 6:30 sharp, same as every morning for the past 8 years. But this morning was different. This morning, I was alone in the kitchen that Alyssa and I had renovated together 3 summers ago. The granite countertops we'd picked out, the backsplash she'd insisted on, all of it felt like evidence of a lie I'd been living. My name is Nick Bishop, and 2 weeks ago, my wife asked for a break. Just like that. No warning, no discussion, just a casual announcement over dinner like she was mentioning the weather. "I need some space to figure things out," she'd said, twirling her pasta around her fork like nothing had changed. "I'm 38, a construction supervisor for Hartwell Development. I build things for a living, houses, commercial buildings, solid structures that last. I thought I'd built a solid marriage too. Turns out I was wrong about that. The house felt enormous without her constant chatter, without the sound of her heels clicking across the hardwood floors as she got ready for work each morning. Alyssa worked in human resources at TechFlow, one of those startup companies that had moved into our city 5 years ago, bringing their open-plan offices and their craft beer Fridays. I poured my coffee and stared out the kitchen window at the garage where I kept my workshop. That's where everything changed. That's where I learned the truth about my wife's break. 3 days ago, I'd been organizing my tools when I heard voices coming from the side of the garage. Alyssa's voice, and another one I recognized immediately. Eddie Shaw, my former best friend. Eddie and I had grown up together, played baseball in high school, been each other's best man. He'd started 3 different businesses in the past 5 years, each one failing spectacularly. But he still drove around in his red Camaro like he was some kind of success story. I crept to the window and looked out. There they were, pressed against the side of my garage, her hands tangled in his hair, his mouth on her neck. The woman who'd asked for a break to figure things out had apparently figured it out just fine. That night, I set up a small camera in the garage. Call it paranoia, call it intuition, but I had to know how long this had been going on. The next morning, while Alyssa was at work, I reviewed the footage. What I saw made my stomach turn. They'd been using my garage as their meeting spot for weeks. My own workshop, where I'd built the dining room table she loved, where I'd crafted the jewelry box for her birthday last year. They'd turned it into their private hideaway. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came when I found her phone, left charging on the kitchen counter while she showered. I'd never snooped before, never felt the need. Trust, right? What a joke. The messages went back months, hundreds of them. Alyssa and Eddie planning their meetings, laughing about how clueless I was. But the real punch to the gut was the group chat she had with her work friend Bridget. "Nick's working late again," one message read. "Perfect timing for my real evening plans." Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Bridget's response: "Poor guy has no idea. You're terrible, Alyssa, but also kind of brilliant. He's so focused on his little construction projects, he doesn't notice anything. Sometimes I think I could bring Eddie home for dinner, and Nick would just ask him about the weather." They'd been mocking me. For months. While I worked overtime to save money for the vacation she'd been wanting, while I fixed everything that broke in the house, while I listened to her complain about her coworkers and her stress levels. All of it was a performance. I took screenshots of everything. Every message, every photo, every cruel joke at my expense. Then I did something that felt both terrifying and liberating. I forwarded the screenshots to a group message that included Alyssa's boss, her sister Janelle, our mutual friends, and Eddie's girlfriend Lisa. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Lisa called me, sobbing. Eddie's business partner called to ask what the hell was going on. Alyssa's boss, a straight-laced woman named Patricia, sent a terse message about maintaining professional standards. But I wasn't done. Not even close. That evening I drove to the Wrench, the bar where Eddie and I used to watch football games every Sunday. Cass, the owner, looked up when I walked in. "Nick, haven't seen you in weeks. Where's your better half?" "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about," I said, sliding onto my usual bar stool. "Turns out my better half has been keeping some interesting company." Cass poured me a beer without being asked. She'd been running the Wrench for 15 years, and she had a sixth sense about when someone needed to talk. I told her everything. About the break, about Eddie, about the messages. Cass listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. "That's low, even for Eddie," she said finally. "And I've seen him pull some stunts over the years." "It gets worse," I said, pulling out my phone. "They've been planning this for months, and they've been using my garage as their meeting spot." Cass shook her head. "What are you going to do about it?" "I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who Alyssa and Eddie really are," I said, starting with their employers. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. Instead of heading to the construction site, I drove to TechFlow's office building. I knew Alyssa's schedule by heart. She had a department meeting every Thursday at 10. I waited in the parking lot until I saw her car, then I walked into the building. The receptionist recognized me from company parties. "Hi, Nick. Here to surprise Alyssa?" "Something like that," I said. I made my way to the HR department, where I could see Alyssa through the glass walls, sitting at a conference table with her colleagues. She looked professional in her navy blazer, her hair pulled back in the style she wore when she wanted to project authority. I knocked on the conference room door and stepped inside. "Sorry to interrupt," I said, looking directly at Alyssa. Her face went pale. "I just wanted to drop off something that belongs to you." I placed a manila envelope on the table in front of her. Inside were printouts of every message, every photo, every cruel joke she'd shared with Bridget. "What is this?" Patricia asked. "Evidence of my wife's extracurricular activities," I said calmly, "including detailed discussions about her affair with Eddie Shaw and some very unprofessional comments about several of your clients." Alyssa's hands were shaking as she opened the envelope. "Nick, please, we can discuss this at home." "We had 8 years to discuss things at home," I replied. "You chose to discuss them with Eddie instead." I turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Alyssa? I changed the locks. Your things are in the garage, right where you and Eddie like to spend time." As I walked back to my truck, I could hear raised voices coming from the conference room. My phone started buzzing immediately, but I ignored it. I had more stops to make. Eddie worked at a small marketing firm downtown. Actually, worked was generous. He was a creative consultant, which seemed to mean he showed up when he felt like it and pitched half-baked ideas to clients who were too polite to tell him no. I found him in the parking lot, leaning against his Camaro, talking on his phone. He looked up when he saw me approaching and quickly ended his call. "Nick, hey, I was just—" "Save it," I said. "I know everything." His face went through several expressions: confusion, realization, fear, then a weak attempt at defiance. "Look, man, it's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I said. "You've been sleeping with my wife in my garage while I'm at work. You've been laughing about how stupid I am. You've been planning this whole thing for months." Eddie glanced around the parking lot, probably hoping someone would interrupt us. No such luck. "Nick, come on. Alyssa and I, we didn't plan this. It just happened." I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the screenshots. A message from Alyssa to Eddie. "Nick's working the Henderson project all week. We'll have plenty of time to plan our weekend trip." "Just happened, huh?" I said. "Looks pretty planned to me." Eddie's shoulders sagged. "What do you want?" "I want you to stay away from my wife. I want you to stay away from my house. And I want you to explain to Lisa why you've been cheating on her for the past 6 months." "You already sent her the messages," he said bitterly. "That was just the beginning," I said. "You see, Eddie, you made one crucial mistake. You underestimated me. You thought I was just some dumb construction worker who wouldn't notice what was happening right under his nose. I stepped closer, and Eddie actually took a step back. But here's the thing about construction work, I continued. It teaches you to pay attention to details. It teaches you to plan ahead. And it teaches you that when something is broken, you don't just patch it up. You tear it down and build something better. Eddie's phone started ringing. He glanced at it and winced. That's my boss. Better answer it, I said. I'm sure he has questions about the messages I forwarded to your work email. As I walked away, I could hear Eddie trying to explain himself to whoever was on the other end of the line. His voice was getting higher and more desperate with each word. My phone had 17 missed calls by the time I got back to my truck. Most were from Alyssa, but there were also calls from her sister Janelle, from Eddie's girlfriend Lisa, and from several of our mutual friends. I drove home and sat in my driveway for a few minutes, looking at the house Alyssa and I had shared. The flower beds she'd planted, the porch swing we'd installed last spring, the mailbox with both our names on it. All of it felt like props in a play I hadn't known I was performing in. That's when I saw her car turning onto our street. Alyssa's white Honda pulled into the driveway behind my truck, and I watched her through my rearview mirror as she sat there for a moment, probably gathering herself. When she finally got out, she was carrying a bouquet of flowers, daisies, my supposed favorites, though she'd never bothered to learn that I actually preferred sunflowers. She approached my truck with careful steps, like she was walking through a minefield, which in a way she was. I rolled down my window. Nick, please, can we talk? Her voice was soft, vulnerable, the same tone she'd used when she wanted something expensive or when she'd made a mistake she needed me to forgive. Talk about what? I asked. Your break? Your need for space? Or maybe you want to talk about how cozy my garage has become? Her face crumpled, and tears started flowing. Real tears, not the crocodile variety she'd used to get out of family dinners with my parents. I made a terrible mistake, she said. The worst mistake of my life. But Nick, we can fix this. We can work through this. I got out of the truck and faced her. She looked smaller somehow, less commanding than the woman who'd announced she needed a break 2 weeks ago. Work through this? I repeated. Alyssa, you've been planning this affair for months. You turned our home into a meeting place for you and my best friend. You mocked me to your co-workers. What exactly do you think we're working through? I know how it looks, she said, stepping closer. But Eddie doesn't mean anything to me. He was just a distraction. A stupid, meaningless distraction. Meaningless? I pulled out my phone and scrolled to one of the messages I'd screenshotted. Let me read you something. This is from you to Eddie last Tuesday. I can't wait to start our new life together. Nick will never see it coming. The color drained from her face. You went through my phone? Your phone that you left on the kitchen counter while you showered? Yeah, I did. Amazing what you can learn when you actually pay attention. She wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara. Nick, I was confused. I was going through something, and I made horrible choices. But we're married. We took vows. Doesn't that mean anything to you? It meant everything to me, I said, right up until I found out it meant nothing to you. That's not true. She grabbed my arm. You're my soulmate, Nick. You're the person I want to grow old with. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. Your soulmate? Really? Because 3 days ago, you were telling Eddie that you felt more alive with him than you'd ever felt with me. She let go of my arm. How much did you see? Everything, I said. Every message, every photo, every plan you made behind my back, including the ones about our joint bank account. Her eyes widened. What about our bank account? Oh, you haven't checked lately? I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Turns out when you're married to someone, you have access to all the financial records, including the ones that show $5,000 transferred to Eddie's account last month. That wasn't... I can explain that. I'm sure you can, I said. Just like you can explain why you told Bridget that I was too stupid to notice money going missing. Alyssa looked around desperately, as if the solution to her problems might be hiding behind one of our neighbors' houses. Nick, please, can we go inside and talk about this like adults? Adults? I laughed, and it came out harsher than I intended. Adults don't sneak around behind their spouse's back for months. Adults don't steal money from joint accounts. Adults don't turn their husband's workshop into a love nest. I'll end it with Eddie, she said quickly. It's already over. I told him this morning that I made a mistake, that I want to work things out with you. You told him that this morning? Before or after you found out that everyone knows about your affair? She flinched. Before. Interesting timing, I said. And what did Eddie say when you told him it was over? He understood. I pulled out my phone again and showed her another screenshot. This one was from Eddie to her, sent just 2 hours ago. Don't panic. We'll figure this out. Nick's just throwing a tantrum. He'll calm down and we can go back to our original plan. Alyssa stared at the message, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Looks like Eddie didn't get the memo about your change of heart, I said. Nick, I swear to you, I never responded to that message. No, but you read it. I can see the read receipt. She started crying again, harder this time. What do you want me to do? I'll do anything. I'll quit my job. We can move somewhere new. Start fresh. Start fresh? I shook my head. Alyssa, you can't start fresh when the foundation is rotten. And our foundation has been rotten for a long time, hasn't it? No, that's not true. Isn't it? When did this start? The affair, the lying, the stealing? It's not stealing, it's our money. When, Alyssa? She was quiet for a long moment, looking down at the flowers in her hands. The petals were starting to wilt in the afternoon heat. 6 months ago, she whispered. 6 months. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Our anniversary was 7 months ago. You were already planning to cheat on me when we went to that restaurant downtown, when you told me how happy you were, how lucky you felt to be married to me. I meant that when I said it. No, you didn't, because if you'd meant it, you wouldn't have been texting Eddie 2 weeks later about how bored you were with your marriage. She looked up at me, and for a moment, I saw something that might have been genuine remorse in her eyes. I don't know how to fix this, she said. You can't fix this, I told her. Some things, once they're broken, can't be repaired. So that's it? 8 years of marriage and you're just giving up? I'm not the one who gave up, I said. I'm just the one who finally figured out the game was over. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and saw a message from my brother Tom. Heard what happened, call me. I need to make some phone calls, I told Alyssa. Your stuff is in the garage, like I said. Take what you need. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. Maybe Eddie has room at his place. Oh wait, he still lives with Lisa, doesn't he? That might be awkward. She flinched again. Nick, please don't do this. Don't throw away everything we built together. I'm not throwing it away, I said, walking toward the house. You already did that. I left her standing in the driveway, holding her wilted flowers, and went inside. Through the living room window, I watched her walk slowly to the garage. She stood there for a few minutes, looking at the boxes I'd packed with her belongings, before loading them into her car. She knocked on the front door before she left. I'm staying at Janelle's, she called through the door. If you change your mind, if you want to talk, call me. I waited until I heard her car pull away before I opened the door. She'd left the flowers on the doorstep, along with a handwritten note. Nick, it read, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway. You're the best man I've ever known, and I threw it all away for something that meant nothing. Please give me a chance to make this right. Love always, Alyssa. I crumpled up the note and tossed it in the trash. Then I called my brother Tom. Jesus, Nick, he said when he answered. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said. Better than fine, actually. I can't believe Alyssa would do something like this. And Eddie, man, I never liked that guy. Yeah, well, turns out your instincts were better than mine. What are you going to do now? I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who they're dealing with, I said, starting with their employers and working my way down. Nick, be careful. Don't do anything that could come back to bite you. Don't worry, I said. I'm not going to do anything illegal, but I'm also not going to let them get away with this. After I hung up with Tom, I sat in my empty house and made a list. Everyone who needed to know the truth about Alyssa and Eddie. Everyone who'd been fooled by their performance, just like I had been. It was going to be a long list, but I had time. For the first time in months, I had nothing but time. The next morning, I woke up at 5:30 out of habit, then remembered I didn't have to make coffee for 2 anymore. The silence in the house felt different now, not empty, but peaceful, like the calm after a storm has passed. I was sipping my coffee and reading the news on my phone when it started buzzing with an incoming call. Bridget from Alyssa's work. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message. Nick, it's Bridget. Look, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but you need to know that Alyssa is devastated. She made a mistake, but she loves you. Please call me back. I deleted the message and went back to my coffee. Bridget had been in on this from the beginning, cheering Alyssa on, helping her cover her tracks. Her sudden concern for my marriage was about as genuine as a $3 bill. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Eddie. We need to talk. I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, No, we don't. His response came immediately. You're making a huge mistake. There are things you don't know. Like what? Not over text. Meet me at Murphy's Diner at noon. Murphy's was a greasy spoon downtown, the kind of place where truckers and construction workers grabbed breakfast before dawn. It was also public enough that Eddie couldn't try anything stupid and neutral territory where neither of us had the advantage. Fine, I texted back. 1 hour. Then I never want to see you again. I spent the morning organizing my workshop, putting tools back where they belonged, scrubbing away any trace of what Alyssa and Eddie had done there. It felt like an exorcism. At 11:30, I drove downtown to Murphy's. Eddie was already there, sitting in a corner booth, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, and his expensive shirt was wrinkled. I slid into the seat across from him and waited. You look terrible, I said finally. Thanks, he muttered. You've ruined my life, you know that? I ruined your life? I laughed. Eddie, you ruined your own life when you decided to sleep with my wife. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? You and Alyssa were going to ride off into the sunset, and I was just going to accept it? Eddie looked around the diner nervously. Keep your voice down. Why? Embarrassed? You should be. He leaned forward across the table. Nick, there are things about this situation that you don't understand. Enlighten me. Alyssa, she's not who you think she is. I stared at him. Are you seriously trying to throw her under the bus right now? I'm trying to tell you the truth. The truth? The truth is that you're both liars and cheaters. The truth is that you betrayed 15 years of friendship for a woman who was using you. Using me? Eddie's voice got higher. What do you mean, using me? Come on, Eddie. You think Alyssa actually cares about you? You think she sees a future with a guy who's failed at every business he's ever started? A guy who still owes money to half the people in town? His face flushed red. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Let me guess. Alyssa told you she was unhappy with me. She told you I didn't understand her, didn't appreciate her. She made you feel like you were rescuing her from a terrible marriage. Eddie's silence was answer enough. She played you, Eddie, just like she played me. The difference is, I figured it out. You're wrong, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? When's the last time you heard from her? Since yesterday morning, when she told you it was over? Eddie pulled out his phone and scrolled through his messages. His face fell. She's not answering my calls, he admitted. Of course she's not. Her plan fell apart. She got caught. Now she's trying to salvage what she can, and that doesn't include you. But she said a lot of things, Eddie. She told me she loved me too, right up until she didn't. The waitress came over and refilled my coffee cup. Eddie waved her away when she offered to do the same for him. So, what happens now? He asked. Now you leave town, I said. You find a new job somewhere else, you start over, and you stay away from my wife. I can't just leave. I have responsibilities here. What responsibilities? Your joke of a consulting business? Your apartment that you can't afford? I have Lisa. Lisa dumped you yesterday, remember? Right after she saw the messages you sent to my wife. Eddie put his head in his hands. This is a disaster. Yeah, it is. But it's a disaster of your own making. I stood up to leave, then paused. Eddie, let me ask you something. Did you ever feel guilty? Even once, in all those months you were sneaking around behind my back? He looked up at me, and for a moment, I saw something that might have been shame in his eyes. Every day, he said quietly. But you did it anyway. Yeah, I did it anyway. I nodded and walked away, leaving him sitting alone in the booth. Outside Murphy's, I sat in my truck for a few minutes, trying to process what had just happened. Eddie looked broken, defeated. Part of me felt sorry for him, but a larger part felt nothing at all. My phone rang. Alyssa. Nick, please, we need to talk. We talked yesterday. Not about us. About Eddie. He's been calling me non-stop, saying crazy things. What kind of crazy things? He's talking about some plan we had, about starting over together. Nick, I swear to you, there was never any plan. He's delusional. I thought about the messages I'd seen, the long threads of digital confession that laid out their private world in excruciating detail, the plans for weekend trips, the money transfers disguised as business expenses, the lazy promises about a shared future that had never included me. Each line had been a nail in the coffin of the life I thought I understood. Alyssa, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I've seen the messages. I know there was a plan. There was a sharp inhale on the other end of the line, followed by a silence so thick I could hear her trying to compose herself. Those messages, they were just fantasy, she said finally, her voice trembling. Just stupid pillow talk. I never meant any of it. Pillow talk, I repeated, the words sour in my mouth. That's what you're calling it. Nick, you don't understand. Eddie is unstable. I think he actually believed we had a future together, but I never wanted to leave you. I just got caught up in something that spiraled out of control. I laughed under my breath, a sound closer to disbelief than humor. So now Eddie's the villain, and you're just the innocent victim? I'm not innocent, she said quickly, almost desperately. I made terrible choices, but I never wanted to hurt you, and I never wanted to leave you. I stared at the steering wheel, fingers flexing against the leather. Then why did you take money from our account? There was a pause, long enough for the sound of passing cars to fill the gap between us. When she finally spoke again, her voice was small. Eddie said he needed it for his business. He said he'd pay it back with interest. And you believed him? I wanted to help him. With my money. With our money, she said, the distinction automatic, habitual. I thought if I helped him get back on his feet, he'd leave me alone. Leave you alone? I said slowly. Alyssa, you were sleeping with him in my garage. That's not someone trying to get away from a situation. I know how it looks. It looks, I cut in, like you're lying to me right now, just like you've been lying to me for months. There was a sharp hitch in her breath. Nick, please. Eddie is scaring me. He keeps saying that if I don't come back to him, he's going to tell everyone that this whole thing was my idea. He's going to make me look like the villain. Aren't you? The question hung in the air like smoke. She didn't answer right away. I could hear her breathing, shallow and uneven, the way it used to sound when she was about to cry, but trying not to. I need your help, she said finally. Eddie's threatening me. He says he has pictures, recordings, things that will ruin my reputation. What kind of pictures? You know what kind, she whispered. I closed my eyes and leaned back against the headrest of my truck, the cold vinyl pressing against the back of my neck. Outside, the rain had started again, tapping softly against the windshield like a ticking clock. Alyssa, I said, my voice low, what do you want me to do about it? Talk to him. Make him stop. He'll listen to you. I barked out a laugh that held no humor. Why would he listen to me? I'm the guy whose wife he's been sleeping with. Because you're stronger than he is, she said quickly. Because you're better than he is. I let the silence stretch before I answered. I'm not your protector anymore, I told her. You gave up that right when you chose him over me. I never chose him over you. Yes, you did, every time you met him in my garage, every time you lied to me about where you were going, every time you transferred money to his account. You chose him. She was crying now, soft, broken sounds that came through the phone like distant thunder. Nick, I'm scared. Then call the police. I can't, she said quickly. If this becomes public, if there's a police report, it'll ruin my career. I laughed again, bitter and hollow. Your career? I said. Alyssa, your career is already ruined. Half your office knows about the affair. Your boss has seen the messages. Did you really think you could just go back to work on Monday and pretend nothing happened? Patricia said, she said if I handle this quietly, if there's no more drama, she might be willing to overlook it. Handle it quietly, I repeated. Meaning what? Meaning make Eddie go away without causing any more scenes. And how exactly am I supposed to do that? I don't know. But Nick, if you help me with this, if you help me fix this mess, maybe we can work things out. Maybe we can save our marriage. I stared out the windshield of my truck at the people walking by on the sidewalk. Normal people, going about their normal lives, not dealing with cheating spouses and blackmail threats. Alyssa, I said finally, our marriage is over. It was over the moment you decided to cheat on me. What you're asking me to do now, that's not about saving our marriage. That's about saving your reputation. Please, Nick, I'll do anything. Anything? Yes. Then leave me alone. Let me move on with my life. And figure out your Eddie problem yourself. I hung up before she could respond. As I drove home, I thought about what she'd told me. Eddie was threatening her, trying to use their affair as leverage to keep her in his life. Part of me felt like she deserved whatever consequences came from her choices. But another part of me, the part that had loved her for 8 years, felt something that might have been concern. I pushed that feeling down. Alyssa had made her choices. Now, she could live with them. But as I pulled into my driveway, I couldn't shake the feeling that this situation was far from over. That evening, I was grilling a steak for one on my back deck when my brother Tom showed up unannounced. He had a 6-pack of beer and the look of someone who'd been elected to have a difficult conversation. Figured you might want some company, he said, holding up the beer. Since when do you drink domestic? I asked, looking at the label. Since I'm trying to save money for the wedding. Tom was getting married to his fiancée Rachel in 3 months. They'd been together for 2 years, and watching them together always made me believe that some people actually found their perfect match. Used to make me believe that anyway. How's Rachel handling the wedding planning? I asked as Tom opened 2 beers. She's stressed, but good stressed. Excited stressed. He handed me a beer and sat down in the patio chair that used to be Alyssa's favorite spot. Speaking of weddings, what are you going to do about yours? File for divorce, I guess. Haven't really thought that far ahead. Nick, can I ask you something? Shoot. Are you sure you want to blow up your entire life over this? I mean, people make mistakes. People cheat. It doesn't always have to mean the end of everything. I looked at my brother, trying to figure out where this was coming from. Tom, she was planning to leave me. This wasn't some one-night mistake. This was months of lying, cheating, and stealing. I know, but what? You think I should just forgive and forget? Pretend it never happened? Tom was quiet for a moment, peeling the label off his beer bottle. I think maybe there's more to the story than you know. What do you mean? I mean, maybe Alyssa isn't the only one who made mistakes. I set down my beer and looked at him directly. Tom, what are you trying to say? I'm saying maybe you weren't the perfect husband you think you were. The words hit me like a slap. Excuse me? Come on, Nick. You worked 60 hours a week. You spent every weekend on projects around the house. When's the last time you took Alyssa on a real vacation? When's the last time you had a conversation about something other than work or home repairs? So, this is my fault? I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying maybe you weren't paying attention to what she needed. I stood up, suddenly angry. What she needed? Tom, what she needed was to not sleep with my best friend in my garage. What she needed was to not steal money from our joint account. What she needed was to be honest with me instead of lying for months. Okay, you're right. I'm sorry. But something in his tone bothered me. He didn't sound sorry. He sounded like he was placating me. Tom, why are you really here? What do you mean? I mean, you show up unannounced with beer and advice about forgiveness. That's not like you. Usually you'd be the first person telling me to get rid of her. Tom looked uncomfortable. I just think you should consider all your options before you make any permanent decisions. My options? I sat back down, studying my brother's face. Tom, has someone been talking to you? What? No. Who would be talking to me? I don't know. Maybe Alyssa? Maybe Janelle? Nick, you're being paranoid. But I wasn't being paranoid. I was being careful. And something about this conversation felt wrong. When did you talk to her? I asked. When did I talk to who? Alyssa. When did you talk to Alyssa? Tom's face flushed. I didn't... Tom. He sighed and took a long drink of his beer. She called me this morning. And she asked me to talk to you. She's worried about you, Nick. She thinks you're going to do something stupid. Something stupid like what? Like ruin Eddie's life. Like making this whole thing public and embarrassing everyone involved. I stared at my brother, pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. She asked you to convince me to back off. She asked me to talk some sense into you. And you agreed to do it. I agreed to make sure my brother doesn't throw his life away over a mistake. Her mistake, not mine. Your reaction to her mistake. I stood up again, this time walking to the edge of the deck. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the backyard, where Alyssa and I used to host barbecues for our friends. Friends who now knew exactly what kind of person she really was. Tom, let me ask you something. If Rachel cheated on you, if she lied to you for months, if she stole money from your joint account, would you want me to convince you to forgive her? That's different. How is it different? Because Rachel would never do that. I thought Alyssa would never do it either. Shows how much I knew. Tom joined me at the edge of the deck. Nick, I'm worried about you. You're not acting like yourself. How am I supposed to act? How does someone act when their entire life turns out to be a lie? Not like this. Not angry all the time. Not plotting revenge. I'm not plotting revenge. I'm making sure people know the truth. Same thing. No, it's not. I turned to face him. Revenge would be slashing Eddie's tires or putting sugar in his gas tank. Truth is forwarding the messages Alyssa sent, showing people who she really is. And what happens when you're done showing everyone the truth? What then? Then I move on with my life. Alone, if necessary. Tom shook his head. You're making a mistake, Nick. A big one. The only mistake I made was trusting the wrong people. After Tom left, I sat on my deck until well after dark, thinking about our conversation. My own brother had been recruited to convince me to back down, to let Alyssa and Eddie off the hook, which meant they were more worried about the consequences of their actions than I'd realized. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Stop harassing Alyssa or you'll regret it. I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, Who is this? Someone who cares about her. Eddie? No response. I called the number, but it went straight to voicemail. A generic recording, no personal message. So Eddie was escalating. Threats now, anonymous ones. He was scared, desperate, and that made him dangerous. I went inside and locked all the doors, then sat down at my kitchen table with a legal pad. If Eddie wanted to play games, I needed to be ready. I made a list of everything I knew about Eddie's business dealings, his debts, his legal troubles. Eddie had always been careless with money and paperwork. If I dug deep enough, I was sure I'd find something he didn't want exposed. Then I made a list of everyone who needed to know about the threats. The police, obviously, but also Alyssa's boss, Eddie's business partners, and anyone else who might be in a position to apply pressure. Finally, I made a list of everything I still didn't know. Like how long this affair had really been going on. Like whether there had been others before Eddie. Like what else Alyssa had been hiding from me. My phone rang. Alyssa again. Nick, did you get a strange text tonight? You mean the threat from your boyfriend? He's not my boyfriend. And yes, that's what I mean. Nick, I didn't ask him to do that. I would never ask him to threaten you. But you did ask my brother to convince me to back off. Silence. How did you... Never mind. Yes, I asked Tom to talk to you. But only because I'm worried about what Eddie might do. What might he do, Alyssa? I don't know. He's been acting strange, saying things that don't make sense. What kind of things? He keeps talking about how we had plans, how I promised him things. Nick, I never promised him anything. I never made any plans to leave you. The messages say otherwise. The messages were just talk, just fantasy. I never meant for him to take them seriously. So you were just stringing him along? I was confused. I was going through something and I made terrible choices, but I never intended for it to go as far as it did. How far did it go, Alyssa? Another silence. What do you mean? I mean, was Eddie the first, or have there been others? Nick, please don't ask me that. That's an answer in itself. There was one other, last year, but it was just what? Just a mistake? Just fantasy? Just confusion? It was nothing. It meant nothing. Who? It doesn't matter. Who, Alyssa? Someone from work. It's over. It's been over for months. I closed my eyes and tried to process this new information. 2 affairs that I knew about. Possibly more that I didn't. Nick, are you there? I'm here. I know this is a lot. I know it's more than you bargained for when you married me. But people can change. I can change. No, I said. You can't. What do you mean? I mean, this is who you are, Alyssa. This is who you've always been. I was just too stupid to see it. That's not true. Isn't it? How long have you been lying to me? How many times have you looked me in the eye and told me you loved me while you were planning to be with someone else? Nick! How many times have you come home from being with another man and gotten into bed with me? Please stop. How many times have you let me make plans for our future while you were making plans to leave me? She was crying now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no desire to comfort her. I want a divorce, I said. I want you out of my life completely. And if Eddie keeps threatening me, I'm going to make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of people you both are. Nick, wait. I hung up. Outside, a car drove slowly past my house. I couldn't see the driver in the darkness, but something about the way it lingered made me uneasy. I turned off all the lights in the house and watched from the living room window. The car made another pass, slower this time. Eddie. I grabbed my keys and headed for the garage. If Eddie wanted to play intimidation games, I was ready to play back. But when I opened the garage door, Eddie's car was already gone. Instead, there was an envelope taped to my mailbox. Inside was a single photograph. Alyssa and me at our wedding, smiling, looking happy. Someone had drawn a red X over my face. On the back, in Eddie's handwriting, "Some people don't know when to quit." I looked up and down the street, but Eddie's car was nowhere to be seen. This was escalating faster than I'd expected, and it was about to get a lot worse. The next morning, I called in sick to work again and drove straight to the police station. Detective Janet Morrison, a woman I'd met a few times at community events, listened to my story with the kind of professional patience that told me she'd heard worse. "So your wife had an affair with your best friend, and now the best friend is making threats?" she summarized. "Anonymous threats, harassment, and he drove by my house last night," I said, showing her the photograph. "This was left on my mailbox." Detective Morrison examined the photo and the threatening text messages I'd screenshotted. "Mr. Bishop, I have to ask, have you been harassing Mr. Shaw or your wife in any way?" I forwarded some messages to their employers and friends, messages they actually sent. I haven't threatened anyone or damaged any property. "And these messages you forwarded, they were private communications between your wife and Mr. Shaw?" "They were on my wife's phone, which she left in our kitchen. We're married, Detective. Legally, I had every right to access that phone." She nodded. "I'm going to talk to Mr. Shaw, issue a warning about the harassment. But Mr. Bishop, I'd advise you to be careful about how you handle this situation going forward." "What do you mean?" "I mean that forwarding private messages to employers, even if you had legal access to them, could be considered harassment on your part. If this escalates further, you could find yourself facing charges too." I left the police station feeling frustrated. Eddie was threatening me, and I was the one getting warned about harassment. My phone rang as I was getting into my truck. Mike Hendricks, my foreman, and one of the few people I trusted completely. "Nick, where the hell are you? We've got the Henderson inspection this morning, and the client's been asking questions." "Sorry, Mike. Family emergency. Can you handle the inspection?" "Yeah, I can handle it. But Nick, you need to get your head right. I know you're going through something, but we've got deadlines." "I know. I'll be back tomorrow." "Good. And Nick, whatever's going on with Alyssa, don't let it destroy everything you've built." After I hung up, I sat in the police station parking lot and tried to figure out my next move. Eddie was escalating, Alyssa was playing victim, and I was losing focus on everything else in my life. That's when I got a call from an unknown number. "Nick Bishop?" "Yes." "This is Patricia Kellerman from TechFlow. I think we need to talk." Patricia was Alyssa's boss, the woman who'd been in the conference room when I delivered the envelope of evidence. "What about?" "About your wife and the situation with Mr. Shaw. Can you meet me for lunch?" We met at a quiet restaurant downtown, the kind of place where business people went to have confidential conversations. Patricia was a woman in her 50s, impeccably dressed, with the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd climbed the corporate ladder the hard way. "Mr. Bishop, I want you to know that I appreciate you bringing this matter to my attention," she said after we'd ordered. "The messages you showed me were illuminating. I figured you had a right to know what your HR manager was doing on company time." "Indeed. However, I'm concerned about Mr. Shaw's recent behavior." "What do you mean?" "He's been calling our office, demanding to speak with Alyssa. When our receptionist told him she was unavailable, he became belligerent. Yesterday, he showed up in our parking lot and confronted her when she left work." "Confronted her how?" "According to Alyssa, he grabbed her arm and demanded that she honor their agreement to leave together. She was quite shaken." I thought about my conversation with Alyssa the night before. her claims that Eddie was becoming unstable. "Ms. Kellerman, did Alyssa tell you what this agreement was?" "She said there was no agreement. She said Mr. Shaw had misunderstood the nature of their relationship." "And you believed her?" Patricia studied me carefully. "Mr. Bishop, I've seen the messages you provided. There were clear discussions about leaving spouses, about starting new lives together. Either your wife is lying to me now, or she was lying to Mr. Shaw then. What do you think?" "I think your wife is a very skilled manipulator who got in over her head." The bluntness of her assessment surprised me. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I think Mr. Shaw is becoming dangerous, and I think your wife is too proud or too scared to ask for help, and because I think you're the only person who might be able to resolve this situation before it gets out of hand." "What do you want me to do?" "Talk to him. Make him understand that whatever he thinks was promised to him, it's not going to happen." "Why would he listen to me?" "Because you're the one person in this situation who has nothing to lose." That afternoon, I drove to Eddie's apartment complex, a run-down place on the edge of town where people went when they couldn't afford anywhere better. His red Camaro was parked outside, looking out of place among the rusted pickup trucks and economy cars. I knocked on his door. When he opened it, he looked worse than he had at Murphy's Diner. His eyes were red, his clothes were wrinkled, and he smelled like he'd been drinking. "Nick, what do you want?" "We need to talk." "I thought we said everything we needed to say." "That was before you started threatening me and harassing Alyssa at her workplace." He stepped aside to let me in. The apartment was a mess. Empty beer bottles on the coffee table, takeout containers on the counter, clothes scattered everywhere. "You want a drink?" he asked, gesturing to a bottle of whiskey on the kitchen counter. "It's 2 PM, Eddie." "So?" "So maybe that's part of your problem." He poured himself a drink anyway. "My problem is that your wife is a liar." "On that, we agree." Eddie looked surprised. "You do?" "Eddie, Alyssa lied to me for months. She stole money from our joint account. She turned our home into a meeting place for her affairs. Yes, she's a liar." "Then why are you protecting her?" "I'm not protecting her. I'm protecting myself, and I'm trying to keep you from doing something stupid that'll land you in prison." Eddie sat down heavily on his couch. "She promised me things, Nick. She said we were going to start over together. And you believed her." "Why wouldn't I believe her? We were making plans, real plans." "What kind of plans?" "We were going to move to Florida. She had a job lined up there, and I was going to start fresh. We were going to get married." I stared at him. "Eddie, Alyssa never had any intention of marrying you." "How do you know?" "Because she's still trying to save her marriage to me." Eddie's face crumpled. "She told me she was done with you. She told me you didn't understand her, didn't appreciate her. She told me the same thing about you." "What?" "She said you were delusional. She said you misunderstood the nature of your relationship. She said it was just fantasy, just pillow talk." Eddie stood up abruptly, his drink sloshing onto the floor. "She said that?" "Yesterday. She called me, scared, saying you were threatening her." "I never threatened her. I just wanted her to explain why she was backing out of our plans." "Eddie, there were no plans. There was never going to be a future with Alyssa. She was using you." "Using me for what?" "I don't know. Money, excitement, ego boost. Does it matter?" Eddie walked to the window and stared out at the parking lot. "I left Lisa for her. I ruined my relationship, my reputation, my business. All for her. And now you know how I feel." He turned back to me. "So what do we do now?" "You stop threatening me. You stop harassing Alyssa. You get some help for your drinking problem. And you figure out how to rebuild your life without her. And if I don't? Then you'll end up in prison, and Alyssa will find someone new to manipulate." Eddie was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to his kitchen counter and poured the rest of his whiskey down the sink. "I can't stay here," he said. "Every time I see her car, Every time I drive past your house, it makes me crazy. So leave. Leave town? Leave town. Start over somewhere else. Somewhere without all these reminders. I don't have money to start over. Then get a job. A real job. Stop trying to be an entrepreneur and go work for someone else until you get back on your feet. Eddie nodded slowly. My cousin lives in Denver. He's been asking me to come work for his construction company. Construction pays well, and it's honest work. Not like what I've been doing. No, not like what you've been doing. I stood up to leave, then paused at the door. Eddie, for what it's worth, I'm sorry this happened to both of us. Yeah, he said. Me too. As I drove home, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Maybe this situation could be resolved without anyone getting hurt. Maybe Eddie would leave town, Alyssa would move on, and I could start rebuilding my life. But when I pulled into my driveway, I saw Alyssa's car parked on the street. She was sitting on my front porch, waiting for me. And she didn't look like someone who was ready to move on. Alyssa stood up when she saw me, smoothing down her skirt in that nervous gesture I'd seen 1,000 times over 8 years of marriage. But this time, instead of finding it endearing, I found it calculated. Nick, we need to talk. I thought we'd said everything we needed to say. Not about us, about Eddie. I unlocked the front door but didn't invite her in. What about Eddie? He came to my office today. Patricia had to call security to have him removed. I just talked to Eddie. He seemed calm. When? An hour ago. Her face changed, a flicker of something that might have been fear. What did you tell him? I told him the truth. That you were never going to leave me for him. That you were using him. Nick, you don't understand. Eddie is dangerous when he's cornered. He's leaving town, going to Denver to work for his cousin. He told you that? He poured out his whiskey and talked about getting a real job. Seemed like he was finally accepting reality. Alyssa shook her head. That's not the Eddie I saw today. The Eddie I saw today was talking about making me pay for betraying him. Betraying him how? By choosing you over him. I stared at her. But you didn't choose me over him. You're still trying to have it both ways. What do you mean? I mean you're trying to convince me to take you back, while also trying to manage Eddie. You're still playing games, Alyssa. She stepped closer, and I caught a whiff of her perfume, the same scent she'd worn on our first date 10 years ago. Nick, I'm not playing games. I'm trying to save our marriage. Our marriage is over. It doesn't have to be. Yes, it does. Because even if I could forgive the cheating, even if I could forgive the lying, I can't forgive the fact that you're still doing it. I'm not. You are. Right now. You're standing on my porch, telling me about how dangerous Eddie is, trying to get me to protect you from the consequences of your own choices. That's not what I'm doing, isn't it? You want me to feel sorry for you, to feel responsible for fixing the mess you made. Alyssa's carefully composed expression cracked, and for a moment I saw real anger in her eyes. Fine, she said. You want the truth? Here's the truth. Eddie is obsessed with me. He thinks we're soulmates. He's been talking about hurting you if you don't let me go. Let you go? Alyssa, I'm not keeping you. You're free to be with whoever you want. But I want to be with you. No, you don't. You want to be with whoever gives you the most excitement, the most drama, the most attention? Right now, that's me, because I'm the one who's rejecting you. That's not true. It is true. If I took you back tomorrow, you'd be bored within a month. You'd find someone new to cheat with. I would never. You said that before. About Eddie. About the guy from your office last year. About whoever else there was that you haven't told me about yet. Alyssa's face went pale. How did you? It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is that this is who you are. This is what you do. People can change. Some people can. You can't. How do you know? Because you're doing it right now. You're standing here lying to my face, trying to manipulate me into feeling sorry for you. I'm not lying. You're not telling the truth either. You want to know what I think? I think you're scared that Eddie's going to expose more of your secrets. I think there are things about your affairs that you haven't told me yet. And I think you're trying to get me to handle Eddie so you don't have to face the consequences. Alyssa was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. There are some pictures, she said finally. What kind of pictures? The kind that could ruin my career if they got out. Pictures Eddie took? Pictures we took together. Pictures I sent him. I closed my eyes and leaned against the doorframe. Jesus, Alyssa. He's threatening to send them to everyone. My boss, my family, your family. And you want me to stop him. I want you to help me figure out how to handle this. The way to handle this is to face the consequences of your choices. Easy for you to say. You're not the one whose reputation is on the line. My reputation is already on the line. Half the town knows my wife was cheating on me in my own garage. That's different. How is it different? Because you're the victim in this story. I'm the villain. You made yourself the villain, Alyssa. I didn't do that to you. She started crying then, real tears this time, not the calculated ones she'd used before. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. But Nick, I can't lose everything. My job, my family, my reputation. I can't lose it all. You should have thought about that before you decided to cheat. Please, I'm begging you. Help me get through this, and then I'll give you the divorce. I'll give you whatever you want. I don't want anything from you, Alyssa. I just want you out of my life. But if those pictures get out, then you'll deal with it. The same way I'm dealing with the humiliation of everyone knowing my wife was unfaithful. It's not the same thing. You're right, it's not. Because I didn't choose this. You did. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and saw a message from an unknown number. Check your email. What is it? Alyssa asked, seeing my expression. I pulled up my email on my phone. There was a message from Eddie with no subject line. Inside was a single sentence. Since she won't choose, I'm choosing for her. Attached were 3 photographs. I looked at them for about 2 seconds before closing the email. He sent them, Alyssa whispered, seeing my face. Not to me. To everyone. What do you mean, everyone? I showed her the email. The recipient list included her boss, her co-workers, her sister, my brother, and about 20 other people we knew. Alyssa grabbed the phone from my hands, staring at the screen in horror. Oh my God! Oh my God, he actually did it! Looks like Eddie decided to burn everything down on his way out of town. What am I going to do? I don't know, Alyssa, but whatever you do, you're going to do it without me. Nick, please. No, this conversation is over. This marriage is over. Whatever happens next, you handle it yourself. I went inside and closed the door, leaving her standing on the porch. Through the window, I watched her make phone call after phone call, probably trying to do damage control. After an hour, she finally got in her car and drove away. My phone had been buzzing constantly with calls and messages, but I ignored them all. I poured myself a beer and sat on my back deck, watching the sun set over the neighborhood where I'd thought I'd spend the rest of my life. Around 9 o'clock, my brother Tom called. Nick, what the hell is going on? Eddie decided to go nuclear. I saw the email. Jesus Christ, Nick. Yeah. Are you okay? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. How can you be fine? This is a disaster. It's not my disaster, Tom. It's Alyssa's disaster. I'm just a bystander now. But people are going to talk. Let them talk. The truth is out there now. All of it. People can make their own judgments. And Alyssa? Alyssa made her choices. Now she gets to live with them. That's pretty cold, Nick. Is it? She cheated on me for months. She lied to me, stole from me, humiliated me. She tried to manipulate me into protecting her from the consequences. How exactly am I supposed to feel? Tom was quiet for a moment. I guess I don't know. I'm done, Tom. With all of it. With her, with Eddie, with trying to fix things that can't be fixed. So what happens now? Now I file for divorce and start over. Just like that? Just like that. After I hung up, I sat in the growing darkness and thought about the past few weeks. The discovery, the confrontations, the lies, the threats, all of it felt like it had happened to someone else. Tomorrow, I'd go back to work. I'd focus on building things instead of tearing them down. I'd start the process of legally ending my marriage to a woman I no longer recognized. And eventually, maybe, I'd figure out how to trust someone again. But tonight, for the first time in weeks, I felt something approaching peace. The truth was finally out there, all of it, and I didn't have to carry the weight of other people's secrets anymore. My phone buzzed with one last message of the night. From Alyssa. I'm sorry for everything. You deserved better. I read it, then deleted it without responding. She was right. I had deserved better. And now, finally, I was free to find it. The story ends here, with Nick sitting alone on his deck, finally free from the web of lies and manipulation that had defined his marriage. He'd lost everything he thought he wanted, but gained something more valuable. The truth about who Alyssa really was, and the knowledge that he was strong enough to walk away from a situation that was destroying him. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to play the game anymore.